Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's edition, right? Today's Wednesday?
It is Wednesday.
Edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live.
You know how I know that?
How's that?
It's game 2, John.
Oh, that's right.
Knicks and Pacers, baby.
Knicks Pacers game 2. I will be there, 8 o'clock tip. Excited. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk, joined by Paul Dottino. Sorry for missing that show on Monday, folks. Again, we had a lot going on yesterday. Paul and JC stepped in, did a really good job, and then Paul and I will be with you the rest of the week here for 3 straight days, talking Giants football right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. All right, everybody. We kind of had a debate about what to talk about today. We were hoping we would maybe have a schedule release thing today or tomorrow, but it looks like that's going to get pushed to next week, which is not great. We have rookie minicamp coming up on Friday. Paul and JC talked about that yesterday. Given what they're doing, what they've done at rookie minicamp under Brian Dable and Joe Shane the last couple of years, it's not going to be some super exciting 2 days of competitive stuff. It's just kind of getting these guys used to the playbook, so there's not going to be a whole lot there. So I've been waiting for a day to do this, and I feel like we finally hit the day where it's quiet. So we kept track last year of our little contests and our little predictions of, where teams would finish, predictions with record and little contests that we did, over-unders, and I thought today would be a fun day to look back at 2023 and see exactly how wrong all of us were. So we have it in the doc. We're going to take a look at it. We have all our predictions and over-unders. We'll kind of cycle through and we'll make fun of each other. We have bold predictions from the fans as well. We'll go through all of those, and we'll see exactly how poor we were and maybe see if we can learn any lessons from these.
Yeah,
heading
don't
into
do
the
predictions.
2024 season. Well, any lessons besides that heading into the 2024 season. Paul, how do you think this is going to go today?
I got a feeling we're going to see a few outrageous things that show up on that. And, I think the thing about it is, and we always talk about it every training camp, you look at the reasons to be optimistic, you look at the question marks, you look at the things that may be pessimistic for all that matters. And then you say, all right, well, let's try to gauge it and let's try to be fair about it. Well, no matter how fair you try to be, ultimately, there's going to wind up being some predictions that are so far out of left field that you didn't even come remotely close. And that's the way it's going to be, and we're going to find a bunch of them here, I know, as John starts going through them. And that's why you got to laugh. You got to laugh because there's no other way to deal with it.
It's funny. I didn't want to go through all of them. I just tried to track all of them down so I knew where they were on the document. Yeah. So I don't know what these are going to look like.
Oh, okay.
I have not really looked at them.
I thought you might have.
No, I didn't want to because I wanted to be surprised doing it live. It was funny. I was going through old papers on my desk as I was cleaning my desk a little bit this morning, and I had all the sticky notes when we used to stick them on the wall, right?
Yeah,
you can't do that anymore because we're actually professional and we're fancy now. But I found the ones from 2 and 3 years ago.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Kenny Golladay Offensive Player of the Year predictions in there. There were some special ones that were, wow. Not even close.
Hence why I've always said through all my years as an announcer that it's a heck of a lot safer to be an announcer than it is to be a coach or a general manager. Because when you make mistakes in that job, you don't last very long.
No, that is correct, which is why it's easy to make these types of predictions here and not having to worry about losing your job over it. Though some of our predictions were so bad, maybe we should have lost jobs over it. But it was rough, but we'll go through them. We got ours, we got the fans. So let's go check it out. Again, and we'll take your calls, too, once we get through all these at 201-939-4513. All right. What do you want to do here first, Paul? We have our full season competition with win record between me and you. We have over-unders, offense, defense, and then we have bold predictions from the fans. Which one do you want to hit first?
Well, I don't think we even want to touch the offensive predictions right now because that's going to be really ugly. So why don't we save those till later?
Okay. So let's do our season stand. Me and Paul did a contest last year where we did a little draft. Each of us picked 7 teams to represent, we would think, each of the 7 playoff teams in each conference. And we had a little contest as to which combination of teams would win the most games.
Yeah, I remember.
So that's what we did. You ended up winning that. You beat me 74-64 because I had I messed up on two teams, predicting them to see how far they would go. I had the Chargers as one of my last. I think they were the last team I picked.
Okay.
They came in at 5. So that, I mean, they were top. They had 6 pick in the draft, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that killed me.
Yep.
And then the Jets at 7 with the Aaron Rodgers injury cooked me. So those are the 2 ones that got me. I had the Seahawks at 9, which wasn't bad. Seahawks at 9 was okay. They were, they were right in the mix there.
Sure.
And I had the Jaguars at 9. So those are my 4 low ones. I had the Chiefs at 11, Bills at 11, Cowboys at 12. So I did well with those 3.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that got me. The Giants were your last pick, Paul, at 6. So that was your low number. Otherwise, you did really well. You had the Bengals at 9. So that worked really well for you, and that was with the Burrow injury.
Yeah.
So the Eagles finished with 11, the Dolphins finished with 11, the Lions and Niners with 12 each, and the Ravens with 13. So you did really well. You beat me 74 wins to 64 wins in that conversation, which I thought was a nice job out of you.
Well, that's cool. I think for the most part, I avoided dramatic and drastic injuries. I think that's really the key right there.
Yeah, I mean, you got all but 2 of your teams made the playoffs, the Bengals and the Giants being the only teams that came up short. Of my teams, did Seattle end up getting the final playoff spot? They did not, right? They were just finished out.
That's why Carroll got booted.
I had 3 teams out. And the Jaguars ended up not making it either because I did not expect the Texans to be as good as they were.
Who did?
Right. So I had the Jaguars, Jets, and Seahawks out on my side. So that's how our season-long predictions went. Paul beat me in that contest. I thought that was a good one. I thought that was a fun way to do it. So I think we'll definitely do that again next year. I thought that worked out really well in terms of learning, figuring out what these teams were going to do.
I do want you, for all those folks out there who always think that I overblow the positives for the Giants, how many wins did I have for the Giants?
Oh, no. That's how many they had.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, I think I had them at 8 or possibly 9 max.
Well, I mean, you predicted them to be one of the
I thought they'd
14
be
best teams.
I thought
Right.
they could win 9 games as a high level and maybe be a while. And the truth of the matter is, the way that they were devastated and still won 6 games, I think in regards to a curve, that wasn't so bad.
Okay. Want to start with defensive over-under here
Oh,
first?
boy. Yeah, we should.
Defense has a better shot, right?
I think I got a better shot at being respectable.
Yeah, I mean, and the problem with the offense over-unders is because of all the injuries with Daniel Jones and stuff, a lot of those are going to be swayed by that. But we'll look at them anyway just because we can, right? So let's take a look here at the defensive over-under first, Paul. I have the Giants' defensive stats up here so we can do the quick comparison as we go through these. And I have our selections, Howard's selections, and Lance's selections on here that we can have a little fun with it, right? So let's start with defense first. You want to kind of waylay the offense, so that's what we'll do. Dexter Lawrence, 7 sacks, over or under. And we came out with this. Dexter finished with 4.5 sacks. He was under. Me and you both had Dex under 7 sacks, so we got that correct. Cross and Meadow had him over. So, and again, I think our argument there is that just in no tackle position, it's very difficult to get sacks. So we ended up scoring with that one. Leonard Williams at 6.5 sacks, over or under. Obviously, he got traded midseason.
Yeah, so that's kind of hard to.
What did he finish with though on the year? I actually did not look that.
I think he had 9.
He only had 1.5 for the Giants.
He did really well in Seattle.
Did he have that
though.
many?
Oh yeah,
he finished with 5.5 sacks. So we had him in over under 6.5. So I actually hit that number almost exactly.
Okay.
And me and you had him over, and Lance and Howard had him under. So that swaps those.
He was their best defensive player in Seattle.
We had
the last 2 months.
Azeez Ojulari, 7.5 sacks. Me and you had him over on that. Lance and Cross had him under, and obviously the injuries just savaged his season. So that's where that landed. Kayvon Thibodeau, we had his over-under set at 8 sacks for the year. He finished with 11.5. Mm-hmm. You and I both had him for under. Lance and Howard both had him for over. So they got that part of that right. Bobby Okereke, 135 tackles. Me, you, and Howard had him over. Lance had him under. He finished with 149. So we got that one right.
Mm-hmm.
Team interceptions, 9.5. The Giants finished with 18 interceptions last year. We all had under on that one, except for you, who had him over the 9.5 interceptions. So why do we think this is the first one that I think is interesting? And we could talk about the Thibodeau one too. Why did you think they were going to go over 9.5, and why do you think that worked out for you?
Well, To be honest with you, John, my calculation on that was the pass rush. I thought the pass rush was going to be better than what it turned out to be. So going in, I thought, you want to go a little bit lower? Okay. I thought going in, they would be able to put more pressure on the quarterback and therefore get more errant throws and wind up with more picks. That's what I was hoping for. As it turned out,
that's not really how it worked, which is funny.
It didn't. The calculation went awry, but the result was what I wanted.
Correct. And Okereke stayed healthy. He was the tackling machine. We all thought he was going to be.
No doubt.
Left the field. The Thibodeau 8 sack thing, that's interesting. If you look at his, overall pressure rate and stuff like that, I think if you look at his number last year, the 11.5 sack is probably a bit of an overachieve. Because his pressure rate from last year compared to the year before really wasn't that much different.
Right.
But the sack numbers ballooned exponentially. So there's a chance his pressure rate goes up, and I think he can stay consistent with the sacks. But I think if his pressure rate stays around where it was, I would expect that sack number to go down a little bit.
I'll throw this one at you, though, and this may change your mind. I think in his second year, because of his experience and because of his wiliness, he learned a little bit more about how to finish. So
I agree.
I would say that could help him maybe get closer to that number this year.
Right, but if you look at the 11.5 sack number and the other players in that 11 sack range, he had one of the lowest pressure rates of that group. So it's just something to keep in mind as we look ahead and we try to predict what his over. And we'll do over-unders for next year, guys, once we get into OTAs and stuff like that. And we're looking for stuff to do, quite frankly. So we'll get into that at some point. I'll probably put his over-under. If I'll do a little bit more research on it. I think I'll put it at 9.5. I think that's probably where I'll put it at for next year, is my guess.
The addition of Burns is also an interesting facet to this,
too. That's a good point.
too.
Does that help him as he gets less attention?
Just don't know. Does he get less attention? Does the fact that if Burns plays for the whole season and he's got the bookend instead of Ojulari, who was missing time and then not picking up his game, how does that impact things? And, of course, too, Leonard Williams isn't here anymore. Now, he wasn't here the second half of last season, but who's the three technique?
And you also wonder, with a new defensive coordinator,
how often are they going to send guys?
And, is he on the field for fewer snaps? There's
a lot we don't know.
High percentage of defensive snaps next year. Does Bowen believe in more of a rotation than Wink does? I don't know the answer to that.
I would hope.
I think he was over 80% of the snaps last year, right?
I would like to believe that Thibodeau can handle that. I'd like to see him on the field as much as possible. To be honest, there are some guys I'd rather sub out. I don't want to sub out Kayvon Thibodeau.
So last year he averaged 58 defensive plays per game, which was 87%. It's a big number.
It is a big number. I would hope if it comes down, it doesn't come down too much.
Dexter came in at 60.
He needs to be on the field.
He came in at 67%, Dexter, but that was just because the injury late in the year.
Right.
I can't remember. Knee?
It was sore lower body, whatever the heck it was.
Whatever it was, he ended up, that reduced his snaps for a bunch of games towards the end of the year. So that's why that got artificially
It was leg.
decreased.
Let's just say leg.
And I'd probably put Dexter around the same again. I think I'd probably put him like 6.5, 7.5, something like that. I'd put him around the same number. So the question is, where would we put Burns?
Who knows?
I mean, I think you put him probably, 10.5, you think? Something like that? I mean, he's only done that twice in his career, right?
Well, he had 11.
Double-digit sacks twice in his career, right?
Yeah, but
different defense, different situation. I get it.
That's going to be a potluck. I have no idea what I would even think about him right now.
Right, well, we'll have to find out. I'll have to come up with that number. Turnover ratio, I put him at 0. Everyone had them over, which means they were going to finish in the plus. I am at the under just because I thought it was going to regulate for the year before. They ended up being well over on the turnover ratio. I think I did not look that up, Paul. That's the one thing I did not do before this, and I don't have that up. Give me a second here.
Yeah, I can look at it too.
I'll bring up what their turnover ratio is. Take me just 2 seconds to sign into Jesus here. But, that is such an important number when you look at
Giants,
how a team finishes
plus 12,
record-wise. They were plus 12.
Plus 12.
Last year.
Plus 12.
They finished tied for first in turnover ratio.
With the Ravens.
I knew they went on they were around even for the first half of the year. And then they went on an amazing run late. Boy, I'm not sure if that's a sustainable number. And, that worries you, right? If you are plus 12 in turnovers and you just only finish with 6 wins, I know with the injuries. I'd rather have them lower on the number so you can count on them getting better in that category and that helping the record.
That would be nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
So I was way wrong on that one. I'm getting hammered on these, which I'm not surprised by. All right, so let's take a look at some of these other numbers, Paul, here on over-unders. We got team sacks. We had the Giants at 45 as a team. They finished with 34. You had them as an over. All the rest of us had them as an under.
As I said, I expected a lot more heat.
Yep. Yards per game allowed. I'll have to bring up that because we got different stats from different areas here. So we have to make sure we get all these things set here. Yards allowed per game, I had them coming in at 345. And for the year, the Giants ended up coming in at 361. So they ended up being over that.
Mm-hmm.
And you were under. Everyone was under. Well, you and Cross were under. Lance and I were over on that. So Lance and I got that right. They finished at 367 per game. We set that at 345. Passing defense, we had them at 200 and. Well, I gotta pat myself in the back. I did pretty good with these numbers for the yardage over unders. We had them at 220 passing yards per game allowed. All of us had them as an over. They ended up allowing 229 passing yards per game. So I was actually pretty close in the number, but that wasn't over. Mm-hmm. We all got that right. Run defense, 120 yards allowed per game. We all went under on that, except for Lance, who went over. The Giants ended up allowing 132 rushing yards per game. So Lance hit that. And then points per game allowed, I put their over-under at 21 points per game allowed, and the Giants ended up finishing allowing 23.9 points per game allowed. We were all over on that except for you, Paul. You were under, so you overestimated their points allowed on defense just a little bit. And those are our defensive over-unders. Your overall thoughts?
To be frank with you, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Well, I think we both expect the offense to be worse.
That's going to definitely be worse.
And given it's already 12:47, I think what we can do at the start of tomorrow's show.
Okay.
And then we can
do that.
And we have a full bank of calls. So I want to make sure
and
we get to the calls.
And you folks will get a good laugh tomorrow, I promise you, because those numbers are going to be really wicked.
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good. Yeah. 201-939-4513. Big Blue Kickoff Live is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. He's Paul Dottino. I'm John Schmeelk. Go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast, folks. We're off of our 4 to 5 per week deal here. But we're still going 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the week and what guests we're getting. You can go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. It's an interview podcast. The one that just came up, we talked to Andrew Phillips' DB's coach / co-defensive coordinator at Kentucky.
That just went up, didn't it?
It just went up yesterday. Really good interview. I don't know, Dan, did you or Matt write that up yet for the site? Okay, well, but it's on the site. It's on podcast platforms. Go find it. A really good insight on him as a player and as a guy. So go check that out on the Giants Huddle podcast. I'm close to setting up Minnesota. I might get his head coach and DC for Tyler Nubin. And I'm working on the other schools as well. So check that out. A bunch of other stuff coming in the Giants Huddle podcast. And our final draft season of the year. If it's not up yet, it will be by the time this is posted later in the day. Tony Pauline look ahead to the 2025 draft class. Just a little really, really brief look at of what next year's class would look like. And Paul, you'll be excited because it's a lot of guys up front. It's a lot of guys up front on defense, especially. A lot of edge players, defensive tackles.
Good.
Guys like that. So it'll be a much heavier, after a heavy offensive draft this year, you're going to have a lot more guys on the defensive side of the ball. But again, it's a good wide receiver class again. And it's something you're going to say. It's not as good as this year, but, I mean, there's a guy you're going to like. Guy at Arizona.
Yeah.
6'4", 215.
Like the measurements.
He might end up being the top one. He's either going to be the top or second wide. He already ran 1,300 yards last year for Arizona. He's a big. He's a skyscraper. You'll like him.
Love skyscrapers.
Kid, I believe born and raised in Hawaii. His name is very difficult to pronounce. Which I will not. I looked it up for draft season, and I got it right for draft season, but now I've forgotten how to do it. So
by the time we get to the combine next year, we'll get it down.
Yes. Luckily, we have some time for that.
Yes.
So again, you can find draft season, Giants Huddle Podcast, Giants app, giants.com/podcast. Search for them on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're on Apple Podcast, for any of our podcasts, if you like what you hear, leave that 5-star positive review. It will certainly help us out. All right, 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. Let's go to Donnie in Queens. He will lead us off today. Hey, Donnie, how are you? Hey, Don, bring the phone pod up there, Danny. There we go. Donnie, start over for me, pal. What's up?
Can you hear me better now?
Nah, now we got you. That's our fault, Donnie.
There
What's
you
up?
go.
Perfect. So I saw our old buddy Dave Gettleman in the news the other day.
You know, I only saw a random quote on Twitter. Was there like a full interview with him?
I'm not quite sure. I just saw the same quote you did probably about the draft. And, you know, while Dave is a good man, he tends to shoot himself in the foot with some of his words sometimes. But it really just kind of got me thinking that.
What did he say?
You know, basically, he was insulting writers for doing draft grades because they've never made draft picks before.
Well, Donnie, I will say this. I also make fun of people for doing draft grades right after the draft, too, because it's ridiculous. Because,
pointless.
It doesn't make any sense.
Coming from Dave, though, like he said some other colorful stuff I don't want to say on your airwaves, but it just came off as a type of a lack of self-awareness. But I'm not here to call out Dave Gettleman.
Anyway, yes. What do you got, Donnie?
There's no more Dave Gettleman excuse now for Shane and Dable. Like, this is, generally speaking, it's their roster. So, you know, you talk about the over-unders and whatnot. Just looking at the team, to me, as much as we all love the draft and we get excited for it, it's really the last few draft classes that are going to probably swing this season. And, you know, you talked about Kayvon. You know, he could go either direction, right? You know, looking at the 11.5 sacks looks great. But, you know, I agree with you. The advanced numbers aren't really that great. It's an unsustainable sack total for the pressures that he had. So I look at him. I look at Deontay Banks, Evan Neal, John Michael Schmitz. Like, those guys really, with directions that their careers go. And it's year 3 now, right? So you always say it's got to be 3 years to judge a draft class. A lot of those guys are coming up on year 3, the end of year 2. You know, neighbors. We're expecting immediate impact out of that guy. So these young players that are really going to shape the future here. Now, I want to leave you on one thing here, and I don't want to have a Daniel debate, but personally, not a Daniel guy. Let's just say after the season, the Giants are ready to move on for whatever reason it may be, whether it's play or injuries, whatever it is. Dak Prescott, if he hits free agency, would you guys be interested in exploring that route? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Donnie. Look, right now, Dak's a property of another team, so I'll answer it by saying this. Dak Prescott is a top 12 quarterback in the league, to be conservative about it.
Yeah, he's top half, for sure, because half is 16. So he's definitely there.
And I would probably say top third. That would put him in the top 11, give or take. He's a really good player. And the Cowboys have won 12 games in 3 straight years. The playoff success hasn't been there necessarily, but I think anybody would sign up for 12 straight seasons of regular season wins. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's as good as it gets. So Dak Prescott's a really good football player, and if he hits the unrestricted free agent market next year, which is a possibility right now, the Cowboys have said they want to try to sign him to an extension. They haven't done it yet. But if he hits the unrestricted free agency market, my guess is that he will get the highest quarterback contract in the history of football.
Well, look what Kirk Cousins just got.
And he's a younger, probably better version of Kirk Cousins.
So, you know, to be honest, you're hypothetical. There's no way in the world I would say Giants sign Dak Prescott because the number is going to be so astronomical. There's no way that this team's going to be able to afford him because by that point in time, after this season, they'd never be able to clear out that much cap room.
Remember,
there are some machinations you can use, but his number is going to be huge.
It's going to be big.
And I don't see any way, based on what the Giants have with their young core, that they're hoping to keep together. They've already signed now the guys like Lawrence, Thomas, Burns.
The good news
they
is
got big money tied up in those guys.
Yes, but the good news is that they don't have anyone else coming down the pike in the next couple of years. They have a couple years on Kayvon still, and they don't have anyone else that you really, say, all right, well, you're going to have to. I mean, you got at least 2 or 3 more years on Deontay Banks. And there's really no one else that you're looking at. You're like, all right, well, I have to pay this guy in the next 2 years. Thibodeau's the only guy, but you still have 2 years on
Okerike's
him.
already signed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
could you?
I think from a cap perspective, and again,
you probably have to gut your roster though.
They don't want us talking about guys that are property of other teams.
Player X,
right?
He's going to cost you a significant amount of money. It's going to be hard to fit him in. That's what I'm saying.
You would have to do
a lot of work.
You have to be very creative with the contract. I don't think you would have to gut the roster because remember you're getting Daniel's number off.
Well, at the end of this year, if Daniel Jones were to go away, there is still a big dead cap hit at the end of this year.
It's not huge.
It's
doable. If you can get,
it's doable,
if you can
but
get
it's still a big
whoever
hit.
that free agent is at a low number on the first year, and then it goes up after that, then it's only going to, how much more is it going to be than what you have planned with your prior quarterback? So I don't think it's impossible if you wanted to go down that path for an expensive free agent. But again, it's a lot of hypotheticals, Donnie. So, we don't even know if we're going to get there, but the Giants are in a healthy cap situation at this point, and I think they do have the ability to be creative if the situation arises where they have to be. Now, I think there's another team in Las Vegas that would be much better positioned from a cap perspective to throw money at a guy like that.
I'm sure a few teams would be.
But they're a team with a huge quarterback hole still.
You
know what I mean? So,
in reference to your other point, which we go back to the standard of 3 years for a draft class to be something, that right now, which of course is not Joe Shane's responsibility, you look at the Tony, Ojulari, Robinson, Smith, Brightwell, and Williams draft class. That collection of 6 players has not given the Giants nearly what they needed to get.
No. So I guess let's look at Shane's classes then, right? Because that's what he can control.
Correct.
Right? So I think, and I'm not going to break any, news here. I mean, it's no coincidence, Paul. These are all guys that they might have to depend on heavily this year that were in that 2022 draft class. Kayvon Thibodeau. We all know Evan Neal has to step up and try to be a better right tackle. Wando Robinson is going to be a virtual starter and wide receiver. They need him to have a big year. Cordell Flott, he could be one of the starting corners. They need him to have a big year.
Keep going, because there are no throwaways here.
I'm still going.
None.
Daniel Bellinger, depending on what happens to Darren Waller, he might be your number 1 starting tight end. They could use a lot out of him. Dane Belton, he could be one of your 2 starting safeties, or at worst your 3rd safety, depending on how they view him, Pinnock, and Jalen Mills, and obviously Newman, who they got in the 2nd round. Micah McFadden, one of your starting linebackers. Mm-hmm. And then, you have Azudu and McKeithen, who are depth offensive linemen. And then you have Davidson and Beavers, who are kind of depth pieces on defense. But, yeah, look, you hit it. People are going to talk about the 2024 draft class, and we say this every offseason. You can't count on rookies to save your team.
No.
What you can count on is 2nd and 3rd year guys to save your team, because those are the years that these guys are going to have to take steps and go to last year's draft class, right? John Michael Schmitz has to play better. Jalen Hyatt's got to play better, but we saw promise, right? Can Trey Hawkins give you something? Can Jordan Riley be a good, rotational defensive tackle? And, of course, Deonte Banks is going to be one of your starting corners. That's an easy one. So, yeah, Donnie, you're right. The success of this team this year, more than anything else, is going to have to do with whether or not Joe Shane's first two draft classes are able to be successful, productive players that help you win football games.
Shane drafted 18 players in his first 2 drafts with the Giants, and as we sit here today, there is not one throwaway. Not one. Now, I know Beavers got hurt and was practice squad last year, but I can honestly tell you right now, as I sit here, and I know Owens was redshirted last year and didn't get on the field at all.
Well, all the guys are still on the roster.
That's the point.
There's that.
I can't say right now, if I said to you, John, bet 1 month's mortgage on the one guy who's not going to be here, you couldn't pick him out right now because you can't be sure.
Yeah.
Maybe Owens or maybe Beavers have less of a chance to make it, but that doesn't mean they won't.
Yeah, and I would say Davidson and McKeithen are probably, given the depth at the offensive line spot and defensive line spot, they could be bubble players at this point.
But I wouldn't want to put a chip down on either one of those guys.
I wouldn't either. I'm with you.
That's 18 players. 18 for 18 right now that I would not bet against. Let me put it to you that way.
Right. I mean, it depends what you mean by bet against.
Bet against saying he's not making the team.
Okay.
I'm not prepared to say that.
Being on the 53-man roster.
Right.
No, I think that's fair.
I would not be prepared to say that about any of the 18 today. Now, I might feel differently in August.
Right.
But today, I can't say that about any of the 18.
Yeah, but we talk about it every year, Paul. It's about the development of your people in-house. And Joe Shane has he's been since he got here, his opening press conference, you build through the draft.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that are going to be the foundation of your franchise, right? So how well do these guys continue to improve and play? And it's starters, in some cases it's starters, in some cases it's rotational guys. It's going to be critical to see how these guys develop, because the team needs them to be good if they want to win a lot of football games.
Got to do it. Got to do it. And to be honest with you, too, even though he was not a draft pick, he's a young veteran, and he did cost them in terms of money and draft picks. Brian Burns is still a young, up-and-coming prime player who's also going to be a foundation on this team.
Oh, no, he's on the list.
He's on the list. So he's accelerated. They're going to need him to be a top-level elite defender. And
same way Okereke's on the list, and Thomas and Lawrence, but I think we kind of know what those guys are. Right. They're young, but they've already proven that they're good players.
Exactly. Young veterans who are in their prime now.
Which is why we also know Brian Burns is a good player. The question is, can he go from being a good player
to being excellent?
Can he reach Micah Parsons level, right? Can he reach Nick Bosa level? Can he reach that group of, pass rusher? If he has the talent for it.
Did I tell you, by the way, since we're a Marvel, and he is Spider Burns, he's a Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man guy. Yep.
Right. So we're Marvel. The Giants have done a lot of stuff with Marvel the last couple of years.
Educate people on comic books, Paul. I know they want.
Well, no. Here's the point. I've always talked about Batman and Robin because I was a DC guy as a kid and a big Batman guy as a kid. So when I talk about pass rushers, dual pass rushers, it's always been Batman and Robin.
So we define a Marvel duo.
So what I've now done, I've now done.
Oh boy.
That is Spider-Man is Burns, and Iron Man is Thibodeau. Because he's a Marvel guy.
Why'd you choose Iron Man?
Because I always liked Iron Man as a kid. He was one of the characters I actually enjoyed when I was a child. I enjoyed his cartoons.
There is anything deeper than that?
No. Okay. I could have picked Captain America or Hulk.
I don't see
my favorite Marvel.
I would see Bobby Okereke as more of a Captain America type. Like if you want to give somebody in the Giants defense a Captain America,
that's good.
I think I'd go Okereke for
My
that.
favorite Marvel character as a kid was Spider-Man, but Burns is already Spidey. He's Spider, so I can't, so that's his. I can't take.
He's got long arms, the play style. I'm trying to think of play style for Thibodeau.
I'm going to give him Iron Man.
What Marvel character would I go with? It's a good question.
But I got to go Marvel now because
he's not like athletic enough to be like the Black Panther. I'm trying to think.
Think about it.
He's not. I mean, Dexter would be Hulk, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you remember he's kind of mild mannered too, and then when he gets kind of mad, he gets upset. Like Dexter is very Hulkish. So I think we're good going Hulk for Dexter. All right, I'll have to give this some more. Maybe when we get
you want to go Wolverine?
Salomon, is Sytak a big Marvel guy? Do you know? Do you have any idea? He is. All right, so maybe when you have Sytak on, we can actually do this comparing.
All right.
Marvel characters.
Because Wolverine and Thor are the only other real common Marvel ones that I know.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, Spider-Man and Iron Man were two of my favorite Marvels. So that's where I'm going to go. But I could be convinced to go Wolverine.
Interesting. I'll have to give this some more thought.
All right.
I've not thought about this. 201-939-4513. If you guys have any ideas, we're happy to hear from you as well. Let's go to Wilson in Roxbury. He's up next. Hi, Wilson.
Hey, Johnny, Paulie.
Hi.
How you guys doing?
What's going on?
Hey, listen, before I get to my point, if I ever saw that Prescott on a Giants uniform, I will never watch the Giants again. I mean,
why?
There's some things you don't do. Because, Paulie, come on, it's like putting Deshaun Jackson on the Giants. I mean,
see, Wilson, I will say this. I'll say this. You think back, and correct me if I'm wrong. Paul, you can correct me too.
Okay.
Has Dak Prescott had that killer moment that's really killed the Giants at a big spot in his career?
He's played well against them, but not a dagger in the heart.
Like Tony Romo had daggers in the heart against the Giants.
Yes, he did.
Because it feels like whenever the Cowboys have been really good with Dak, the Giants haven't been. So they really haven't had that year where Dak is really, stuck the dagger in and twisted it in that really big spot to kill the team, which is why, Wilson, I'm surprised. I don't feel like the Giant fans, generally speaking, have the animosity level for Prescott than they had for Deshaun Jackson, for Romo, and for kind of guys like that. At least that's my feel for it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Wilson, I would go one step further. Between the Eagles, the Washington Club, and the Cowboys, there have been many a times the Giants have had players from those teams come to the Giants. Did you root for any of those guys when they got here?
Not to that level, Paul.
Okay, that's fine, and that's fair. Okay.
I'm old school, and there's some things you don't do. But anyway,
I mean, Herschel Walker was he wasn't there long, but he's a pretty popular player.
And so, Wilson, to your point, you must not be very happy with Saquon then, if you want to do the reverse psychology on that.
Listen. I told you before. Saquon had one good year, and then he was average at best.
All right.
Say he was.
We shouldn't have gone there, John.
That's a different.
Wilson, what else you got?
Wilson, what else you got?
Look. So I like. So would you agree that pretty much what we have is what we're gonna get? Like the team is pretty much set. I mean, we can maybe tweak it here and there, but I think with the free agency and everything and draft, the players that the Giants have are the players that are gonna make the team, and we're gonna grow with them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's not gonna be any like.
Yep.
Okay.
Can't do much more.
No. What I'm saying to you guys is this: I think, Paulie and John, I think we have enough. I think we do have enough talent that we can make a push for a playoff spot. I mean, a couple of things have to fall in the right place. Like the offensive line, I mean, they can't play worse. I mean, it's almost impossible to be worse than what they were last year. So
yeah, that's true.
If they play a little better, and Daniel Jones comes back 90%, and at least he has some before when he gets the football and he looks up, he doesn't have somebody hitting him in the face. He's got a little more time. I think he can be back to 2 years ago. I really do. I mean, hopefully, all the weapons will get better. But that's one thing. How the defensive players gravitate to the new offensive coordinator. That's also is going to play a big part. But the last two things that's either going to help us or kind of derail us is this. Then the next to last thing is I think either Philadelphia or Dallas, one of those two teams, guys, they're going to come back a little to the pack. It's just lower of averages. They're going to come back to the pack a little.
Yeah, Wilson, I think Dallas for sure is not as talented as they were last year. I thought Dallas last year when they added Gilmore and Cooks were going to be awesome, and they were. I don't think they're nearly as talented this year, so I think that's an issue. Okay. Philly, I don't know what to think. With the way Philly – look, I think Philly improved. I think their roster is good. I think it's better. But I just don't know what the mindset of that team is right now with the way they finished last year with that head coach. I don't know what to think about the Eagles, to be honest with you.
That's a team, and Lance was good at predicting this. He said the change in coordinators was going to be very impactful. It turned out to be.
Was it, though? They started the year so strong.
But in addition to the fact that their defense got old and slow and hurt.
Right. No, you know what? I was gonna say this to you guys. If I was gonna put my money, I would have put my money on Philadelphia kind of coming back to the pack. And and the only reason is this: I think that the NFL as a whole has kind of caught up with Jalen Hurts. I think that if you keep him in the pocket and you don't let him run around, just throw the ball out for grabs, this guy cannot make a tight window throw. If you kind of cover the receivers, not like just cover them, they're not 10 yards wide open, he can't make a tight window throw. He showed it last year. Unlike poor Daniel, that all he had to do was throw into double coverages. So I think, but the last thing is this. I'm in the minority here. You guys know that. Hopefully I'm wrong about Brian Daboll, but a lot of people think that he's a good head coach. But if Brian Daboll has an off year like last year, none of this stuff is going to matter. I think he's got to go back to being the coach of the year, Brian Daboll, and not last year. I know there was a lot of different circumstances, but he had some horrendous games, some horrendous decisions, like leaving Tommy DeVito against New Orleans when the Giants still had a pulse and they were only down by a point, and then yanking him in the second half against the Eagles when the Giants were playing for nothing. Weird stuff that that to me he had an off year. So hopefully I'm wrong and he can be. But that's in a nutshell what is going to make our season. He's got to be better. And also Mike Kafka and all that. But Brian Daboll's the head coach, so everything's going to fall on him.
Thank you, Wilson.
Okay.
Appreciate the call. Look, I don't think coaching had much to do with the record last year myself. I think it had to do with health of the players and performance of the players. I think the offensive line is going to be better. How good is it going to be? I don't know. Of course, health, Paul, has a lot to do with this. New offensive line coach. But look, just Andrew Thomas being there, in theory, for 17 games moves the needle a ton. You would hope John Michael
exactly.
You would hope John Michael Schmitz gets better in year number 2. That should make an improvement. Then John Runyon is just a better player than what they've had at guard the last 2 years, right? So those are the 3 spots where you hope you get some improvement. You see about Evan Neal at right tackle. You hope you get better there. And then if Illuminor is the other guard, you think he's a bit of an improvement over what they had the other guard spot last year. And then we've talked about all the depth that they have there in terms of having a lot of guys that can back up different spots.
The bodies.
So, look, that's your hope of where the offensive line is going to be. Again, you hope that Carmen Brasillo, the new offensive line coach, helps facilitate that. But that's a big part of it, keeping Daniel healthy. Daniel playing better. He has better weapons at receiver than he's had in any other year as the Giants quarterback. Your running back situation obviously not as great. And then you roll it out and you see what happens.
Look, we've said this before when there have been different staff changes over the years. You never know how it's going to work out. But the biggest acquisition for the offensive line may be Carmen Brasillo, because a rising tide raises all boats. And if Brasillo is the guy who can unlock the best out of 2, 3, 4 of these linemen, then he becomes the most valuable acquisition to the room, John. If he can do that.
He could. If he can raise the level of play of all those guys.
And you know what? There are some offensive line coaches who can do that. It's not unrealistic to say an offensive line coach can have that much of an impact on a squad. It can happen. The problem is it's got to be the right guy at the right time with the right players in the room. And we don't know if that mix is going to produce the results that they need until the season actually unfolds.
If they can stay healthy and the offensive line plays better, and the result of that is Daniel Jones playing better, I think this team has what it takes to be in the mix for a playoff spot in December.
I agree.
Do they play to that level? Does it work out? I don't know.
No.
But I think heading into the season, you think that's certainly a possibility, especially with this defensive front.
Well,
and you hope how well this front could potentially play.
And as we said the other day, a little help from the schedule maker. Please, good start in September for the Giants. Give them some cream puffs in there, please.
Do we think Thibodeau has some Deadpool in him? You know, he kind of talks a little trash. He could be a little boisterous.
Deadpool?
Just like Deadpool? How do we feel about that? Thibodeau Deadpool?
You know what? I tell you, folks, you can come up with suggestions, and we'll ask our other cohorts as well.
No. We're going to make this a full show sometime in May or June because now I'm interested.
I'm going to talk to Tibbs, and I'm going to ask him.
He might not be a comic book guy.
I'm going to ask him. Good
luck with that. I think you should ask him at the rookie press conference on Friday.
Well, he won't be here Friday.
Yeah, Thibodeau's talking to the media on Friday for rookie minicamp.
Is he?
I think so, yeah.
Tibbs?
Right? No, Dable. Oh, I thought you wanted to ask Dable.
No.
I thought you said Dable.
I'm going to ask Tibbs.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, ask Tibbs. See what he says.
Yeah. Yep. He may or may not be a comic book guy, but I'm going to ask him, who does he want to be? If the other guy's Spider, who does he want to be?
But Spider-Man really didn't have like a sidekick type.
No,
right?
he did
really
not.
Did not.
Which is why, I got to get off Batman and Robin. I can't do it anymore because we got Spider-Man.
I mean, he kind of Daredevil. I mean, he kind of would, but Daredevil is also blind, so I don't think you could go with Thibodeau for that. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, if he doesn't care, I'm probably going to go with Iron Man because that was, like I said, one of my favorites as a kid. So, but we'll see what Tibbs says.
Sounds good.
Okay.
201-939. I'm literally going through Marvel superheroes trying to find a good name. Oh, that's not bad, Salamone.
What do you got?
He went Blade.
Oh.
And Blade also did work with Spider-Man a little bit. So that's not bad. How about the Punisher? It's another good one. He was also in New York City, had some interaction with Spider-Man.
See now,
Punisher's not bad.
He's too new for me. When I was a kid,
really, Punisher wasn't around back in the day?
Well, he put it this way: he didn't have a cartoon when I was a kid.
No,
he did not have a cartoon.
In the Spider-Man cartoon I watched growing up, Punisher was kind of a side character that would come in, and Spider-Man had to deal with his antics.
That's quite a ways from my time.
Yeah, Punisher's not bad actually. Punisher and Blade, I like those two actually. That's pretty good. It's not bad. Not bad.
I'm going to ask him. That's the bottom line. I will ask.
I could see Thibodeau hunting vampires. Why not? 201-939-4513. Timmy in Charleston. Tim, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, John and Paul, how you doing?
We're great.
Hi.
I got just a couple of things. First, John, you mentioned the Chris Collins interview, and about Drew Phillips out of UK. And I got to tell you, from my perspective, that was like the best coach interview that I've seen on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Everybody should listen to it. I think Giants Huddle. Well, that's what I meant. Sorry.
That's okay.
Giants Huddle.
Different link. Different link.
Check is not in the mail, Tim. Sorry.
Different link.
I sent it to a couple of friends, and his answers were very straightforward answers and analysis on the player. I love how when you gave your little analysis and he agreed with you, I love the big smile and the head nod that you came up with every time too. Patting yourself on the back there, but that's okay. We all deserve it. But the way he was like,
all I did was smile, Tim. Come on, it's not like I said, "Oh boy, I was on the money there." I just smiled. What's wrong with that?
We are pleasant people here.
And in fairness, Chris, and unprompted, Chris did give me a couple really nice compliments during the interview too, just for the record.
Yeah, but and his stuff, something I had never really heard before, that in phase and out of phase stuff, and
that was interesting.
Outside arm. That was interesting stuff. At the end of it, I almost felt like if we had an opening, I would hire him. I was like, he just seemed like super competent, super diligent, and everything like that. So, that being said, everyone should listen to it. And in terms of this year, I'm hopefully optimistic. I mean, I think that's all we can be. And I think again, it's obviously it always comes down to health, but particularly we have more depth on the offensive line. But so if the offensive line stays healthier, Daniel gets more time, more quick game, like Paul always says. You all say, but Paul says it the most, I think. And I think the offense can do more. I think Drew Phillips, I'm very encouraged about him. If he might not start game one, but developing into our slot corner. And I had Newman in the second round. I think he's going to be excellent. But the one guy we cannot lose is Andrew Thomas. We lose Andrew Thomas to injury for an extended period again, and then the whole Jenga build falls down.
Yeah, and Tim, I'm afraid because we had this conversation before last year, and I argued that maybe even more so than Daniel, Andrew Thomas was the one player. I remember me and you had this debate, and I said maybe even more so than the quarterback, Andrew Thomas was the one guy this team could not afford to lose. And again, this is not me patting myself on the back. Sadly, I did not want it to be proven correct, but I think it ended up being proven correct that, Tim, you're right. That is the one guy you just – there is no – with Illuminor, you have somebody that at least I think you can slide in there and feel okay about because he has played that position before and he's done it in the league. But that is still the one guy that I think would have a negative cascading effect on the rest of your offensive performance. And frankly, Neighbors might be guy number 2 now, to be totally honest with you.
Depends on how much they want to spread the ball around, because Barkley was the only headache player on offense, and now he's gone. And I think when we had this conversation last year, I think that was the name that I threw out there, because I value headache players to such a degree because of the respect that they command and the intimidation that they can provide against an opposing team's defense. Well, now the Giants, at the moment, don't have any headache players, because Barkley's gone, Waller is in limbo, and Neighbors, we don't know yet. He's got to get here. He's got to do something first. So,
I mean, he's the guy that you would hope is your
you're
headache
darn straight you hope.
I mean, you picked him 6th overall.
You
I think
hope.
that's why you picked him there, right?
Absolutely. He better be.
Exactly.
Oh, and he better be quick, too. There's not a lot of wait time on him. He better do something pretty quick.
And wide receivers are definitely more turnkey than a lot of these other positions. So I feel fairly confident he should be pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think our first 4-round draft, the draft picks in the first 4 rounds, I think we'll all contribute over the course of the season.
Concur.
Obviously, Waller's status will affect the tight end, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Johnson.
But yeah, I thought it was Johnson, but I wasn't 100%. Anyway, and even that 5th round guy could turn out to be, something in the kick return game. It'd be interesting to see. I hope if he holds on to the ball, he could be a weapon there. So thanks for the time, guys. Great hearing you. And like always, I'll tell everyone, listen to all these Giant Huddles. They're awesome.
Thank you, Tim. And by the way, folks, if you do have friends that are Giant fans and they don't listen to Big Blue Kickoff, they don't listen to the Giants Huddle podcast, tell them to listen and subscribe. It helps us out. Tell a friend to tell a friend. All right, let's go to Joey in upstate New York. Joey, you're up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
How's it going, guys?
We're good, Joey. What's on your mind?
Friendly neighborhood optimum guy up here.
Nice.
All right. Now, in regards to the linebackers, I mean, how about Powerman and Iron Fist for Okereke and McFadden?
Who?
And, I mean, Powerman and Iron Fist.
I gotta admit, I am not familiar with Palamon and Iron Fist.
What brand of comic are they from? Are they Marvel?
That's also that's absolutely Marvel. So I was born in the '70s. So in the '80s, I was collecting all the comics. You know, you pick them up for a quarter, 50 cents, $1.
Sure,
it was back then. But that was one of the ones he was in those two were in the Daredevil Punisher universe.
Oh, you know what? I actually watched the Iron Fist series on Netflix. Yes, I did watch that, but. Palamon? Who? That I'm not that familiar with.
Power Man has also had one on Netflix, and he's just a big tough guy, man.
What was his superpower?
Oh no! Wait, no. You had Punisher in that universe, and then you had Luke Cage in that universe. Those are the two other guys.
Power Man was Luke Cage.
Oh, that's Luke Cage. Okay, Luke Cage, I know. Yeah. I got you. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. So, I mean, you got them, and, somebody, the secondary is going to have to be quick, fast, and I'm trying to think of who would be applicable in this case. But in regards to the call, the reason for the call.
Yeah. Hey, we can talk comics. It's okay.
Yeah. We can sit there and talk Marvel.
By the way, Joey, this is the beauty of episodes in May when there's not a lot going on. We can have fun with stuff like this,
exactly.
And it's okay.
This is the entertainment portion of the calendar.
Absolutely, fellas. So, the question that's been kind of bothering me for a little while, I've been asking Carl. I asked Carl about it on Twitter. It was on Joey New Yorker back home. And is what was the plan for next to Dex? I mean, are they just anticipating Jordan Riley taking the next step, DJ Davidson taking the next step? Because there was a lot of good, players in the second round. And I'm not taking anything away from Newman. The kid's going to be a stud. But a lot of those second-round defensive tackles, 3 techs and 5 techs that were in there, got picked up really quick.
Yeah, there was a run on those guys right before the Giants made their second-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And right after they picked, they had Michael Hall go to Cleveland. There's another guy I like that looked really good.
Yeah, and reading after the draft, apparently a lot of teams had Hall off their boards for off-the-field stuff.
Really?
So,
right.
yeah. Apparently, not like criminal stuff, but like personality and like football character stuff, according to reports now, and I have no idea where the Giants had him. I have no idea. But apparently some teams had him off their boards.
And by the time the draft started getting into the deeper rounds, John and I both had our eye on Wingo, but he took forever to go.
Wingo and Dorless.
And Dorless too?
Those are the two guys,
I was looking at Dorless in the fourth.
But,
and that's another thing is they've been drafting secondary year after year after year, it feels like. I think it's 7 cornerbacks in the last 5 years. Phillips is going to be a great slot, but Darnay's there, Aaron Robinson. We have the ghost of Aaron Robinson is there. You got a lot of slot guys. So, having them pick up the kid Long from, that's been bouncing around the league. That's going to go with Hawkins. I mean, the second cornerback position was another question I had,
Well, Joey,
I
said the other day on Big Blue Kickoff Live, and then I answered the question and posted it also on my Twitter page. I think that Ryder Anderson and Boogie Basham may also get some experimentation at the 3 technique. And I do think that this new coaching staff, or at least the new defensive coordinator, is very curious to find out what it is that they've got in the building. And maybe the Giants were a little conservative in hunting for an outside defensive tackle. I mean, they signed Phillips from the Bills, of course. But I think maybe they were a little conservative there because maybe Coach Bowen says, guys, I got some fellas here I really want to know about before we do anything else. And to be honest, defensive tackle is one of those spots that you may be able to tweak and pick somebody up later on in the summertime or right at the beginning of training camp.
Yeah, and look, and we've seen the Eagles do that, right? Over the couple last seasons, they've added, whether it was Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, guys like that. And look, I feel like, Joey, that they have some size there, right? They added Jordan Phillips, who's kind of that big nose tackle type. Nacho
32 years old.
Yeah, no, he's older, but, I think as a one-year stopgap, he's fine. You have Nacho, who can do a little bit of both, little nose tackle, little 3 technique. Jordan Riley's a huge guy. He's got a big body. You have DJ Davidson. So you have some numbers there to throw at it. and you have a lot of guys with size. My question is, and this is why I kind of threw this out there as a possibility last week on one of our shows, I forget which one, would they consider in some situations using Dexter Lawrence at 3 technique instead of nose?
You said that. Yeah.
Because you have so many other guys with size to play nose. So I'm curious to see how they kind of manage that as you move forward here.
We just haven't talked to Coach Bowen enough to know. We just haven't.
Yeah. He does a lot with 2-4-5, according to the fighters over there, from what I was seeing. But where I hope they go shopping is at the Packers. I mean, you have Colby Wooden, who they took in the I think it was the 4th round last year, who's number 3 on their depth chart. You got Towns, Brenton Cox, Kenny Clark. So I mean, if they're getting into a tight situation towards the end of the year, start shopping at the Packers, even if it costs a pick next year. I mean, if they were able to pull a guy like Wooden, like I said, who's 3rd string at this point, he just put 12 pounds of muscle, according to what they had on an interview on their draft site for draft day. He went from 278 up to 290, and he would fit perfectly next to Dex.
Joey,
I don't think they pull him because he's young.
I think the radar is always going to be on because that spot right now is kind of murky. It's a little smoky, the 3 technique. So I think what they'll try to do over the next few months is figure out what they really have in-house. How does Shane Bowen want to use those guys? Does he think he has enough? And if not, then maybe you're looking at trying to trade a number 6 or a number 7 pick. Or for that matter, who knows? Maybe you don't even do that. Maybe the waiver wire provides somebody who's an answer. Because the truth is, the 3 technique defensive tackle is not going to be a highly sought-after guy on the waiver wire. People are going to be looking for other positions much more than they're going to be looking for a 3 technique. So you still might be able to get somebody decent.
Yeah, I just wanted to shore up that defense. The rushing. They lost Leonard last year, and he kind of wasn't replaced unless they were banking on Davidson and Riley in-house, So that's what I was thinking is maybe they might be able to find an up-and-comer. I mean, they just shopped and got Nathan Rourke, or, who was potentially an up-and-comer that had no home. God knows what he's going to do. But it's just an example of, shopping the wire and seeing what's out there. So,
Joey, good call, my man. Appreciate the call.
Thanks, guys.
Always good. Yeah, you too, man. Have a great one. Always good to have some new names on there. And let's wrap it up with George in Florida. George, you're our final caller here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's up?
Thanks for taking my call, John and Paul.
Hi.
I've got a question. I'm not sure whether you've addressed it in the past, but I haven't read anything or found anything. It's about Daniel Jones and his contract. I am not a Daniel Jones hater, so I'm not coming from that direction. But I understand that he has one more year left guaranteed, and the Giants can opt out of the contract at that point in time. But I'm trying to figure out the next step if they want to take another step. If they keep him for that 3rd year, do they then have to keep him for the 4th year also?
No, you don't. No. You actually have less dead money if you end up deciding to let him go after 3 years as opposed to 2. And there is dead money after 2 years as well because of the contract signing bonus and how that's structured. That gets accelerated. So, yes, that's pretty much where it stands.
I don't think it's nearly as much, though, from what I've read.
After 2 years, assuming there's no, injury guarantee, that kicks in, and that's a very complicated issue where more money gets guaranteed for injury, but he has to be able to pass a physical at the time he's let go for that to kick in. That gets into a lot of layers, but if there's no injury issues involved, again, this is according to Over the Cap. The Giants do not put their contract information out there publicly.
Correct.
So we're not giving you any inside information. We're just reading off of a website here that if they let him go after this year, it's $22 million of dead money. The year after that, after 3 years, it would be $11 million of dead money.
Okay, so my next question is, it's related. Suppose he has a mediocre year. Giants don't have a replacement quarterback for him. Can they opt out of the contract and then negotiate another contract with him, or does the NFLPA prohibit that sort of thing?
They would probably try to renegotiate with him and restructure it.
Right. You
before
don't opt
they
out.
let him go. Correct.
You can't opt out of the deal. That you can't do.
Yeah, there isn't an opt out in the deal. You would just say, you would go and say, look, Daniel, we would like you to restructure your contract and figure that out. But he might not be amenable to that. There's absolutely no way to know.
No.
And you hope Daniel plays well enough this year where that isn't the case of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay, I appreciate it. But I got one more comment to make. I've read that Saquon has made a comment about the Giants did not offer him a contract, and I know it's true, but I think it's a little disingenuous from the standpoint of, didn't they offer him a contract similar to what he signed with Philly in the middle of the 2022 season?
Look, I don't know the details of exactly how that went down and whether or not there was an official contract offer made. I think it's pretty clear Saquon knew what the Giants would be willing to pay him. Even if an official contract offer wasn't made, he knew what the Giants would be willing to pay him.
And the Giants not only offered him deals multiple times the year before, they said consistently throughout the process they wanted him back.
Yep.
Right.
So you can take the semantics wherever you like based on what Barkley said, but we also know what the evidence told us over the previous 2 years.
And again, we have no idea what actually went down with that, George. But we've seen the same quotes, and look, I think
it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, you guys probably aren't going to like what I'm going to say, but I'm glad the Giants have moved on from Saquon. Not that they didn't like him, not that they didn't think he was a good player, but I think it was going to hold the offense back to have so much of the offense going through one player. They needed to move away from that. They have. Hopefully, it's a good move. And anyway, I appreciate you taking my call.
No, thank you, George.
And hope you guys have a good rest of the week.
Hey, you too.
Be good.
Appreciate you calling in. Don't be a stranger. Guys, look, the Saquon decision is pretty simple. He's been in the league for 6 years. He has a lot of tread off the tires. And he's had a lot of injuries. And generally speaking, heading into 7 and 8 years and 9 years of a running back's career, they start getting worse. And that's just how it goes. Does it happen for all running backs? No. Does it happen for a lot of them, according to the statistics? Yes. So you have to decide whether or not that's worth your investment or not at that position where you can get somebody that gained more yards than Saquon did last year at a third of the price in Devin Singletary.
I would also add one other thing for people to consider when they talk about the Barkley scenario. There was a great groundswell of media folks out there who thought he was going to wind up in Houston or Baltimore. Mm-hmm. You remember that? We never heard a word about either one of those teams coming up with Philadelphia's offer to try to woo him.
Yeah, well, Houston ended up signing.
They went a lot cheaper.
No, they were one of the first teams off the board.
Yeah, but they went cheaper. They didn't give out a Saquon contract.
It was in like the $8 million range or something
correct.
like that. Yeah, who'd they end up signing?
I don't recall, yeah. but neither Baltimore nor Houston wound up signing a back for the kind of money that Barkley got from Philadelphia.
Joe Mixon? Is that who they brought? Yeah, they brought in Mixon. And that was actually under it. I think that was closer to 6 or 7. Yeah.
So let me just throw that out for you to chew on. Philadelphia made him apparently an offer that was way out of left field from what the rest of the league and the market thought. So you can't blame him for taking it because it was an outrageous number, and they were probably, it sounds like, the only team willing to give him that number. So that's how it works sometimes.
It's the business of football. Everybody, thanks for being with us. Don't forget, you can take your fans to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2024 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And while you're online, go download Giants TV, the Giants connected TV streaming app. It brings original video content, game highlights on demand, and direct to Big Blue fans. All of our content is there, folks. Also on the Giants YouTube page. Check that out as well. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. Allergies are finally disappearing. The tree pollen has been murdering me for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and it's finally starting to dissipate. You still hear it in my throat a little bit, but it's starting to go away.
Save your voice for the game tonight.
Oh, I'll be yelling. You don't have to worry about that.
Good. You're going to be all right tomorrow?
I'll be fine.
Okay.
I have good pipes.
Look, if they have another game like they did game 1, you may not have anything left.
Every game is close with that. You know that.
I know.
Every game is close. Enjoy it, Knicks fans. And
go.
We'll see you next time.